Iron Man 2 is kind of like, I guess, the beginning of somewhat of a downturn for the MCU. Kind of started off a high with Iron Man that kind of went down a little bit with Incredible Hulk, and it's kind of going down more with Iron Man 2. It's not a terrible movie, rewatching it, it's not as bad as I remember it being, because it was definitely one of my least favorite movies, because Iron Man was like one of my favorite movies of all time. So then when you get Iron Man 2 as being a step down, I was kind of like a little disappointed by it. I mean, overall, yeah, I think it's pretty fun. There's definitely a lot of like essential things going on in it. You can tell that Marvel's trying to race against time to get to the Avengers, so they kind of sacrifice the story and character a little bit in order to kind of shoehorn a bunch of MCU tie-in stuff, which will definitely happen a lot more in later movies, where the director has their own vision for the story, and then Marvel and the studio is trying to like shoehorn their own kind of larger MCU ideas in it. So this is kind of one of them. One of the things was like the whole Stark Expo, which wasn't like, like a huge thing, but I think it was really cool that it kind of gets set up in this movie and then gets brought back later on in Captain America, where Howard Stark, another big character, Howard Stark, is introduced in this one, played by John Slattery, who's, a great actor, has the first established Stark Expo in Captain America Civil War during like the 1940s, and then Tony Stark is bringing it back here, which when I first saw that, he was just going to be like a little cameo in the MCU, but yeah, he actually becomes like pretty prominent character in the storyline, has a lot of appearances throughout the MCU, which I thought was really cool. And then we also get, other pretty big characters as well. We get Natasha Romanoff, who's in this one is Natalie Rushman, but then gets revealed later on that her real name is Natasha Romanoff, who turns out to be Black Widow, which in this movie, she's kind of just like, she's obviously, the eye candy, the kick butt, action hero and everything like that, who doesn't really have much personality. But I'm glad that Joss Whedon gave her a lot more three-dimensional personality in Avengers. And then obviously we get James Rhodes as War Machine finally. We have that joke in Iron Man 1 where, Terrence Howard looks at the silver Mark II Iron Man armor and he's all like, next time, baby. But then, the little joke is like, well, it's not you, because, obviously gets replaced by Don Cheadle, which, I have a whole tangent about that, but won't go into that. So Rhodey finally dons the silver Iron Man suit, and then obviously that evolves into the official War Machine armor, which he'll use throughout the series, and then, obviously gets refined more and more as the series of movies goes on. But that's really cool, seeing him finally in the armor, and then they're kind of like friends, but then they kind of butt heads during the midpoint, and then they kind of go their separate ways, but then they come back, and then they're both the two Iron Men going against all those, drones created by Ivan Vanko, who's seeking revenge on Tony Stark with the whole fallout that both their fathers had when they were inventing the arc reactor. So it's kind of cool seeing that whole full circle thing. But yeah, they defeat Vanko, they defeat the Iron Drones, they defeat, Justin Hammer, who's trying to shut down Iron Man's whole superhero thing going on, and kind of prove that, the world doesn't need Iron Man. They need soldiers who can like have their own armor and, protect the world instead of, relying on this one guy. So, he gets his comeuppance, and then Tony Stark at the very end gets recruited by Nick Fury to work for him for S.H.I.E.L.D., but only as a consultant, not as Iron Man. So I thought that was a really fun twist as well. Obviously a lot of trying to race against time in order to get to the Avengers. And obviously we have that post-credit scene of Coulson, getting that call to go out to the New Mexico desert. And then, he sees a hammer in the middle of the desert. And, obviously that's going to be the setup for Thor. So yeah, overall, yeah, it's like a pretty okay movie, definitely not my favorite. Definitely prefer the first one, but I do see like the essential elements that have to be put in this movie in order to get us to Avengers. But it'd been nice to kind of get just an official Iron Man sequel and not really worry too much about the tie-in, or just not really have this movie and just go from Iron Man to Avengers. But, overall, it's all right.